Hello, welcome. I'm Mike, KG4VDK, and I'm here with, I think, an exciting announcement about a new arcOS version, codenamed Crater Lake. This is built on Mint 22.1 as opposed to India, which was built on 21.3. So this is a major version bump from the Linux Mint base that arcOS starts with. But all of the features and conveniences that were in India remain in the new Crater Lake, but with a whole lot more spit and polish applied. I think we're in a much better place for usability and convenience and that kind of thing. For those that would be coming from India onto Crater Lake, hey, Mr. Orange Man, this is my cat control. Orange guy. Hey, bud, come here. For those that may be coming from India to Crater Lake, this is going to require a fresh start. You're just not going to be able to pull off getting everything over from a major version change. So consider Crater Lake a fresh start, and I think you will find it as good and even better than what India was. So let's jump right in to how to get it installed onto a USB drive, and we'll walk all the way through your first Winlink connection. So let's hop over to the machine and see what it's all about. Okay, so here we are, booted into a Linux system. This happens to be as you can see, the Xanadu version of arcOS. This is kind of my fictional place where I'm building things that'll be the next thing. So don't worry about that name. But this is a Linux system that gives me the ability to write the arcOS USB from the ISO image. So I can go to the arcOS website. We click Get arcOS Now. Go ahead and click Download arcOS. That'll get your download started. Once your download finishes, you're going to need to verify the ISO checksum. That's right here. So to do that from a Linux system, you can point your terminal into the downloads directory or wherever you downloaded it to, and then you're going to run md5 sum and the file name of that ISO, and that'll tell you what checksum your ISO file has, and hopefully the checksum you get matches the one from the website. If they match, you know you've got the ISO as it was intended and there's been no corruption in the download process. From there, click on Quick Start Guide. That'll take you over to the documentation page where, if you hadn't already figured out how to download it and verify it, you can do that. And now we need to create our bootable USB. So we're going to use the GNOME disks utility. That's what we're going to use to do this. So I don't currently have the USB that I want arcOS installed on in this machine. So I'm going to plug that in. We'll see it populate here in the disks utility. There it is, 128 gig Samsung flash drive. There's nothing on it. I'm going to select the little three-dot menu up here and do a restore disk image. I'm going to browse to my downloads folder where that ISO lives. Double click the ISO. It's going to give me a little notification that the disk image is smaller than the target device, obviously. Any of that extra space, so 4.2 gigabytes is the ISO, leaving us with 124 gigs. That 124 gigs is going to be turned into persistent storage, so it's not going to go to waste. Don't worry about that. So we can just click Start Restoring, and it'll take it a couple minutes to get that written to the USB. I'm going to minimize this for a second. While that's finishing up, you may want to read through some of the system requirements and make sure that you're really going to be able to pull this off. You're going to need an Intel or an AMD 64-bit processor. We're not going to be able to run this on a Raspberry Pi or any of the Apple M-series processors. Your machine needs to have 8 gigs of RAM. If you've got more, great, but I've had plenty of success with 8 gigs. That's plenty. And then for graphics, network card, and audio, as long as they're supported in the Linux kernel that is supplied in arcOS, we're good to go. And that'll be the same kernel that was in the Mint 22.1 install ISO. So as long as your machine works with the Mint installer, we're good to go. As for your USB drive, I'd recommend at least 16 gigs, though these days it's hard to find anything that small. But at least 16 gigs. I'd say USB 3.0 is strongly recommended. Maybe that borders on required. If you're using a USB 2.0 drive, this is going to be painfully slow. So as long as your machine has a USB 3.0 port to boot from and you're using a USB 3.0 drive, you should be in a good spot. And please use a decent quality, a reputable brand, not just some USB stick you got from your dentist's office in a little party favor bag or something like that. The Samsung Bar Plus, the Samsung Fit Plus is the little low profile version of it. These are some I've had really great luck with. I've had several of them in service for multiple years. I've had 2 failures of probably the, I don't know, dozen of these drives that I've had over that time frame. And the ones that have failed have lived rough lives anyway, so they have not let me down. If you need a GPS device, these are a couple that you can search for on Amazon, wherever you like to shop. Check those out. They may be budget friendly enough to fit in your kit. So got our quick start guide here, and then there's some frequently asked questions at the bottom of this documentation page. If you'd like to read through those, maybe that explains a little bit more about why arcOS is what it is. So let's see if our image has finished writing. Yes, our image has finished writing. So we're good to go. We're going to go ahead and reboot, and we'll come back up in the new version. If you did happen to be doing this from a Windows machine, I don't know if I called this out, but take note. If you're using Rufus to write this ISO image, make sure that when the option is presented that you select write in DD image mode. If you write it in the ISO image mode that it says is recommended, this is not gonna work. Rufus ends up trying to create an extra partition, and it's not how this is designed. So make sure you use DD mode and you should be good to go in Rufus. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and we'll get rebooted into Crater Lake. See you in a second. All right, here we are booted into Crater Lake. So we've got a window that's popped up, select operator. We don't have one yet, so we need to create one. We're going to add new, and now we're going to type in call sign, name, city, and I'm abbreviating it because it's long, and a grid square. Hit OK. arcOS is going to deploy its core modules for the first time, so it's going to take a little bit longer than it normally will this first time. There's some file systems that get created that takes a little bit of time, but we'll let the modules run. The screen flashing black, that is, well, I don't like it. It is expected. It's normal. What's happening there is the desktop environment is getting restarted, and that's to handle some things that the modules are doing. And unfortunately, it just flashes the screen black, but that is normal, and don't worry about that. So now we're all set up. We've gotten our notification that my call sign KG4VDK is QRV. I am ready to go. So I've got my DigiRig plugged in. Let's see, I think I'm hooked up to an HF radio right now. That's fine. But it doesn't look like I've got any radio software available to me, but I do. Here it is. You go into the main menu. Under amateur radios, where you'll find all of the fundamental amateur radio software that's included in arcOS. If you happen to have purchased the VARA unlock key, you can download those keys here. When you click it right now, I'll get a message that says I don't have an internet connection. So we go down here, the network. I'm going to connect to my Wi-Fi here. And because I'm going to be using this system, I want to save that Wi-Fi connection. So once I've gotten connected, I can see I've got a good connection down here. My printer gets added. I'm going to go to Save Wi-Fi connection. That is in the arcOS Tools menu, in here with all the other things that are ready to be saved. But now that I have an internet connection, I can download these keys. Now the next time I boot up, those arcOS, the VARA modules will fire. Because that key was not on board and wasn't valid the first time I booted, arcOS remains locked. You'll see this little lock icon here. That means that VARA is not unlocked in this instance. But the next time I boot up, that will be available. But since most people are going to be wanting to get started with maybe Winlink right off the bat, that's usually my first test. If you want to have the things you need to do a Winlink connection available to you ready there on the panel, maybe RDOP and Direwolf, and let's grab Pat for our Winlink client and go ahead and put that on the panel. Now I've got these ready to go. I'm gonna switch over to a VHF radio real quick, and here's all I need to do. I'm gonna open up Direwolf, let it get started. I open up Pat. I'm going to select AX25 because I want to do a packet connection, because Direwolf is a packet modem, and WC4EOC-8 is the gateway I'm going to be using here locally. So let me turn up the volume on this radio just a hair. All right, I'm going to try a connection. All right, so I'm connected to the gateway. I need to put in my password. It'll finish that connection, and no new messages for me today. All right, so I'm good to go there. Winlink works right out of the box. I had to type in my password manually because I don't have it saved in my config file. If you want to save that in your config file so you don't have to type it in every time, you can set Winlink password from a right click on the Pat Winlink icon. Set Winlink password. Super secret password. All right, so I have put in my not password, and now because that's saved, I can do a save config. This will save my Pat Winlink config file to what is called in arcOS a QRV profile. In this case, it offers the option of default. That's what I'd suggest you leave it at for this. The way QRV profiles work is you save it. So if you change some things in FLDigi and you save your FLDigi config, it'll ask you what QRV profile you want. If that's just the one you want all the time, call it default. If maybe it's a setup just for field day, call it field day, and that kind of thing. That way you've got different things that can be deployed for different use cases. But in this case, I'm just going to save it to my default profile. All right, now that we've checked Winlink with Direwolf and we've gotten our Pat Winlink config saved and we've downloaded the arcOS keys, I'm going to reboot. We'll come back up and we'll see how it goes when we're installing VARA, and then we'll do a VARA connection, and this time it'll already have password on board, so we won't have to worry about putting a password in for our Winlink connection. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down, and then we'll come back up and run it with the keys where it'll unlock arcOS and we'll be able to use VARA. All right, we're booted back in. This time we're presented with the select operator window, and it knows who I am already. So I can click OK. It's going to pre-populate everything I already put in there. Hit OK. Now we notice that because I had the keys, we have a message up here that says arcOS is unlocked for KG4VDK, and these VARA installers or the VARA setup is all going to kick off. Now, I saved my Wi-Fi connection earlier, so I am connected to the internet. Here in a minute I will be, at least, but for right now I am not connected to the internet. arcOS does not require an internet connection for any of this installation of VARA, or frankly anything in arcOS. Other than downloading the keys and downloading the ISO, you do not need an internet connection to use arcOS. It is completely off-grid capable. So these VARA installers are going to pop up. Look at this little message that's popped up at the top for each of the VARA and VARA FM installers. Just accept the license agreement and then click through the installer. Just leave all the options as the default values and you can be squared away. So I'm just going to click next, accept the license, and click straight through. Here's VARA done, I'm sorry, VARA FM done, and then our VARA installer for HF. Agreement, click through. If you happen to have a VARA registration code, you can put that in here. If you want to deal with that later, you can do that later. But if you have a VARA registration code, go ahead and put it in here. If not, you can just hit OK and leave it empty. That makes sure VARA gets installed, and it'll be available in the wine category of the main menu. So now I can look under the wine menu. I see VARA FM. I'm going to go ahead and put that on my panel. If you notice, all those things I added to my panel before I did that reboot, they're all back on the panel. Anything you add to the panel down there, applications-wise, is persistent. So you can set that up with whatever you like down there. In the previous versions of arcOS, 21.3 India, that was static. You got what I put down there and that was it. But people like to have what they like to have down there. They don't necessarily want what I put down there. So this gives you the option to kind of customize what you actually have on your panel. So I'm going to go ahead and open up PAT. And I'll open up VARA FM. I've just realized that I did not put my real password in here. So this may be interesting. Yeah, there we go. I did not put my real password in there. So that was a successful connection with a bad password. But I'm not going to go back in and change that right now, because that'll mean I have to put my password on the screen where it can be read. But that proves that VARA is working. It connected to the gateway, and then the gateway informed me that I had the wrong password. But that is functional. So there is arcOS straight up and running with all the things you could need for Winlink connections already set up, ready to go out of the box. You got an arcOS USB, you got a DigiRig, and you've got a radio. You're good to go. Another thing that may be helpful to folks that are new to this, there is a field manual that exists here in the home directory. That's one of the core modules that deploys this field manual into the home directory. So you can read through this and maybe find hints and tricks and information that'll be helpful as you become familiar with arcOS. If you run anything you have problems with, feel free to reach out on GitHub, or there is still available. You can open up the HexChat client and that'll connect to the arcOS IRC chat room. I may or may not be hanging around, but sometimes there's other folks hanging around. Ask a question there. If nobody answers, feel free to leave a way to contact you. I've always got this client up and running here at home, but I may not be sitting here to get it. Leave me an email address that I can reach you at. You can send me a private message. The arcOS dev account is actually the one that's up all the time, but you can drop me a message there. Let me know an email address that I can reach you at, and I can try to help you out. Please don't use a Winlink email address. I'd prefer to keep support off of Winlink, but just let me know how I can get in touch with you and maybe help walk you through whatever you need help with. That's the basic quick rundown of very basic functionality. There's a whole lot more going on in arcOS, but I will dig into that in some more videos. But just to give a taste of what we're working with, we've got the ability to do backups. We can do desktop sharing. Let's see. As far as amateur radio software, we've got RDOP for a Winlink modem. That's a sound card modem. Direwolf is a packet modem. We've got the FL Digi suite, including FL Amp and FL Message and FL Rig. JS8 Call, Paracon. We've got PAT for a Winlink client. We've got QSS TV for slow scan television. WSJTX for FT8 and all the things that are encompassed there. And then Yak as an APRS client. Firefox and Thunderbird here for your web browser and an email client. These are both persistent without you having to do anything. Your browsing history, your bookmarks, all that kind of stuff. If you save passwords for websites, that'll be there for you when you come back. And same for Thunderbird. If you configure your email accounts in Thunderbird, the caveat here, that is a fairly small file system that is made persistent there. If you need help making your Thunderbird persistence bigger, let me know. I can walk you through how to do that. It's set, I believe, currently to 512 megs or 1 gig or something like that. So if you've got like an IMAP mailbox that's huge, you may need more space than that. That can be handled. It's just that at the time that module creates that file system, I don't want to waste too much time creating a huge file system for most people that may not even use that. So if that's something you need and we need a bigger size, let me know. I'll walk you through how to handle that. For mapping, we've got Viking maps available. If you've not used it, it's a great tool for creating, viewing, editing GPX files. In arcOS, there is nothing to handle routing. Why? Well, every time I hear people talk about routing in the world of ham radio and the prepper world that comes with that, it's always in this something happens this Friday scenario, the SHTF scenario. It doesn't make any sense to me, honestly, why you would think you're going to use a routing application in the zombie apocalypse. That's not the route you're going to take. You're going to sit down, you're going to plan a route, and you can do that in Viking, plan your route using a GPX file, and then take the route you plotted. You can know where you are, and you can find the route you want to take. But just having brouter or whatever tool is doing the routing in some of these other applications just doesn't make sense in the situation people are talking about they're going to use it in. Awareness is great. Depending upon the route that says this is the way everybody else would take, probably not the route you want to take in those times. So Viking is a way that you can handle that, in my opinion, in a little bit more situationally aware type of way. We've got Office applications if you need to do documents for, maybe you've got a club presentation, you need to do a PowerPoint. LibreOffice Impress is a great stand-in for Microsoft PowerPoint. Satellite and SDR menu, you've got ADSB. If that's something that you enjoy, you can pop this open. And here we go. I can see all of these aircraft that are currently near my position. All I needed to have for that is that's one of these like Newelec or Nesder Smart, whatever they're called, little $20 SDRs off Amazon, little aluminum long rectangle. Plug that in, hook an antenna up to it, click ADSB, you're good to go. If you've got a GPS plugged in, this ADSB viewer is GPS aware. So as long as you have a GPS fix, it will show your location where it needs to be and show you the airplanes that are near you. You've also got gPredict, if that's something you like to use for figuring out satellite passes. I'm not a big user of GQRX or GNU Radio Companion, but they're here. If you like to use them, feel free. They're there for you. You've got VLC Media Player. If there's any files that are kind of weird and you need to be able to play them, that's usually a great tool for that. Simple Screen Recorder is what I'm using to record these videos. That's why that's there, but it may also be helpful for you if you need to do the same kind of thing. Maybe you need to create a tutorial for people in your organization about how to do a thing in arcOS. Simple Screen Recorder is here and can help you get that to your people. And then under the wine category, you've got your VARA and your VARA FM and VARA HF. For those that are interested in privacy and security and that sort of thing, Cleopatra onboard and your GNU PG, your PGP keys are persistent. And then this is handy, as I often have Post-it notes laying about in physical form. You've got access to sticky notes that are persistent. So you can take notes, make little checklists for things that you need to do for a particular event, and those will persist just for your call sign. When the station's set up window, that select operator, there can be multiple operators. Almost everything in arcOS handles multi-user pretty well. It's when we get into running user modules that are beyond just the core modules that if you run a user module and then another user logs in, your user module will still be in place. So if you're in a multi-user situation like a club or a school or a family of multiple operators, in between operators, do a reboot and everything should be square. But that's just a quick rundown. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what arcOS is capable of. There's far more that can be touched on. One I'm thinking of right now, you have for your call sign, you have a persistent calendar. The downside here is that alerts don't pop off. So you won't ever get a pop-up that says you have anything coming up. But you do have a calendar that you can put events on, and that will persist for your user. Let me run through real quick and see if there's anything else that I've just missed right off the bat. VARAcrypt. If there's files that you are worried about people having access to, because in the new Crater Lake version, we no longer have the ability to do a LUKS encrypted partition for our persistent storage. The reason for that being is it creates a bottleneck for write speeds to that drive. Simply wasn't worth the trade-off. So if you do need to have a place where you can store things away that are behind a password, become familiar with VARAcrypt. You can create a VARAcrypt volume and use that to stash things that you want to make sure that if somebody were to come across this USB stick, that anything inside that VARAcrypt volume isn't accessible without the password you've put on it. Over here in the station information, the conky that's over here, you've got a check mark next to the ISO. That means that the ISO you are booted from is current with the one that is available on the arcoslinux.com website. So as long as that has got a check mark on it, you know that you're up to date with what's on the website. Now, obviously, if you don't have an internet connection, it's not going to be able to reach out and check that. In that case, it shows a question mark so that you know that it's unsure if it matches. And then your QRV modules, those are the arcOS Linux modules that come from GitHub, and that check mark there lets you know that your module version is up to date with what's available on GitHub. So there may be times where one or both of those shows the kind of refresh icon, like this green button here. That's the update modules button. So if you see that your QRV modules has that icon next to it, then you're going to want to update those modules and make sure that you're on the current ones. If the ISO changes, which hopefully will be few and far between, we're shooting for man, if I say 6 months, I'm being optimistic, but I'm hoping that we don't run into any major problems in between now and maybe 6 months out. That would be great. But when a new ISO comes out, that'll at least be a way that you can know that you should go check out the website, see what's changed. We'll do some more videos to walk through the backup and restore process, because I think that is very important to making sure that people have reliable stations that are ready to go when they need them, is to get them set up in a way that works for them, take a backup, and then be able to restore from it. But we'll cover that in another video. Thanks for sticking around long enough to watch this whole thing. Sorry for rambling, but hopefully that gets you a little bit more familiar and excited to explore. Read through the field manual, see what's there. Read through the FAQ section if you had any questions, and then, like I said, reach out to me with any problems. I'm here to try to help you get your station up and running. Again, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.